From homework assignments to reminders about after-school activities. In this digital age, more and more teachers are using social media and texting to talk to students.
But some say that is a slippery slope to a sex scandal, and it brings up some important questions. Is that communication regulated? Should it be?
News Channel 15's Alyssa Ivanson went digging for answers in her 15 Finds Out investigation, School Guard.
It's a story you see on the news all too often. A teacher accused of having sex with a student. In fact, a quick Google search today found nearly a dozen recent cases all across the country, including one in Indianapolis. Last year, a study found in 2014 there were 782 reported cases of a school employee accused or convicted of an inappropriate relationship with a student. 20 were in Indiana, putting the state 14th in the nation. And of those 20 cases, half involved communication via social media. So 15 Finds Out pulled the social media policies for all the districts in our area to see how they regulate teachers texting. One national expert says these policies not strict enough. But several superintendents tell 15 Finds Out the solution is not as simple as a policy change. Within the last year and a half, 4 Northeast Indiana teachers convicted of having sex with students.
There's 70,000 educators in the state of Indiana, and when you think about how many cases there are, it's a really small number. But those really small numbers of behaviors give the entire profession a black eye.
In 3 of the cases, the teacher and students sending private text messages.
A district right now that does not have some kind of social media policy, well, they got a ticking time bomb on their hands.
It's a common sense policy.
Formal policy for the social media, we don't have one, but we've got ethical aspects.
There's also some protections I think that needed to be in place.
If I felt like a policy would help, we would certainly create one.
With hundreds of teacher sex scandals across the country, one former education leader says he has a way to prevent them.
Take away the secrecies, take away that part of the problem.
Former Chief of Staff at the U.S. Department of Education, Terry Abbott, sat down with 15 Finds Out via Skype. He says districts need to adopt a policy that requires a teacher to copy a parent or administrator on any message sent to a student.
If teachers know that they will be and can be fired for a single secret text message with a student, it will stop.
15 Finds Out wanted to see what policies are in place in our area. After reviewing 46 district policies, only 3 had no explicit rules on how and when teachers talk to students through text or social media. Most allow electronic communication, but say it has to be, quote, directly related to curricular matter or extracurricular activities. Why is that not strict enough?
What happens in these cases is the electronic conversation will begin with a school-related matter. Very, very quickly, that conversation can turn into a sexual-related conversation.
That's the case at Wayne High School last year. Court documents say a student asked a teacher about homework on Twitter. He replied with his cell number and told the girl to text him. Those messages became inappropriate.
We really view texting just like we would a phone call. If it's inappropriate in a phone call, then it's inappropriate in a text. The reality is, texting is how people communicate.
Was there any talk about changing policies, or is there a need to change policies after you do have an incident like that?
You know, we always look at our policies. I wouldn't say that that spurred anything different than what we already talk about.
While it doesn't regulate texting, FWCS does prohibit staff from friending a student on Facebook.
I've reviewed many policies, and I haven't reviewed one yet that I felt like did anything that actually prevented something like that from happening. If it did, we would do it.
Bluffton Harrison MSD Superintendent Wayne Barker says his district does not have a social media policy. His district also hit by a teacher sex scandal in 2014.
After that happened, why not change your policies?
Well, I don't know that anything happened because of a policy or lack of a policy. It's very difficult to legislate morality.
But what about Abbott's idea of requiring conversations to have a third person copied? Barker says in his district, students often reach out to teachers and staff for help getting to school or even for help at home.
Provide them food many times and diapers or things like that that they need. And when you're in the middle of those conversations, to try to include someone else in somewhat emergency situation is difficult.
Northwest Allen County School Superintendent Chris Himsel agrees.
We also deal with situations where we deal with child abuse, and we deal with different things that are being reported from the home as well. And we have to be able to maintain both of those roles.
While NACS doesn't have a social media policy either, the district says it is covered by other policies.
We've got ethical policies in terms of the appropriate relationship that you have with students. And if it's a situation where it doesn't matter if it was done in a face-to-face interaction, if it was done in writing a note home, if it was done through email or through social media, and we expect that professionalism will exist at all times.
It's the other end of the spectrum at Smith Green Schools, just adopting a new social media policy last fall.
You watch other districts and you see what kinds of things are going on there. And once you see the things in the newspaper and you realize that's not where we want to go.
Smith Green's policy says messages should pass the TAP test, transparent, accessible, and professional, and that parents have to be copied on messages sent to students unless the parent opts out.
You're protecting your students, but you're also protecting your teachers and your community when you have things like this. And we just thought it's a common sense approach. And I think every school corporation at some point in time is going to have to set the boundary lines.
Now, every district did tell us, regardless of a policy or not, a teacher who has an inappropriate relationship with a student would be fired. So what do you think? Should districts require teachers to include a parent or administrator on any message sent to a student via text or social media? Chime in right now on our Wayne.com poll. You can also see what your district's policy is right now. We've linked to all of them in this story on Wayne.com. Then tomorrow, School Guard continues as we take a look at the legal issues of regulating how teachers communicate with students and why some say lawmakers need to step in. Plus, we'll show you how some new technology could actually be part of the solution to all this.
Wow, really interesting stuff. Thank you so much, Alyssa.